Thank you, Martine. We appreciate your support. Our next speaker is someone who is familiar for her advocacy for New Yorkers as a member of the New York City Council, serving Community District 6 for the past 5 years. Before that, very involved as a public servant, an educator, and a nonprofit leader. Please welcome the Honorable Gail Brewer, also a member of the Education Committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mindy, for inviting me, and I'm really here. There are 51 members of the City Council. I know there's a representative here of Councilmember Annabelle Palmer from the Bronx, and I think all of us with schools in our district, which we spend a great deal of time in, but nobody could tell the world how important 15,000 learning, leading volunteers. Nobody could thank you enough. Nobody could credit you enough for all the work that you do in the lives of 265,000 students in 960 schools every single day. Math, reading, long division, all the different preparation that needs to go on, arts education. The reason I think this is so important is that sustainability is what makes our schools great. And just as the wonderful regent from the state of New York talked about Mrs. B, the fact of the matter is a lot of young people don't have sustainability. So you're the sustainability. I know because I've actually had 30 foster care kids in my own home. So I know that sustainability is extremely important. Don't be invisible. Let me give you an example. Yesterday at City Hall, one of the civics teachers brought down a class of Brandeis High School students. It's a school that Learning Leaders is in. It's a school that I support with all possible efforts. And the students were learning about City Hall. They knew a little bit about, of course, what goes on nationally, but they were not as informed as they should be, or as many of us are, about civics and what goes on locally. So I told them some of the suggestions going on in the neighborhood that they could be part of. So again, the great thing about Learning Leaders, you bring the neighborhood into the school. You bring what's going on around the school into the school, and you share that. You're not invisible, and you make the students feel significant. I also think that the great thing about our principals and our teachers is that they really respect the work that you're doing. And that kind of collaboration between instructors and volunteers can go a long way to incorporate learning leaders into the education of students and all the daily challenges that students and instructors and principals alike face. I know, for instance, intergenerational is another aspect of our lives in New York City that's important, and a lot of young people don't experience the great part and the work that intergenerational can bring to us. You know, there is actually a survey going on in New York City trying to make us all age in a more comfortable way in New York City, and guess what? Very soon there are going to be more seniors than children in the city of New York. And the fact of the matter is all young people need to understand what older generation is all about. And so between intergenerational and sustainability that Learning Leaders brings to the schools, you are fabulous. I also want to know and suggest that another way in which Learning Leaders is great, as I said earlier, is you talk to your community. You allow for extensive communication between the school and the community. There are so many ways to get involved. You as Learning Leaders have suggested that you are working in the schools, but you heard Lydia talk earlier. I have been on the Neighborhood Advisory Board. I have been on my community board. I have been on the PTA. She's doing them all right now. And she's a learning leader. But you can bring all of that expertise into the schools and then promote internships, mentorships, all the things that go on that make a young person feel better about themselves and build self-esteem. I am delighted to also announce this is a big election year. I won't get into anything that's partisan, but I will mention that on behalf of Learning Leaders, volunteers will be recruiting at schools that are election sites on Election Day in November when schools are closed. And so there'll be big signs when hundreds and thousands of New Yorkers go to the polls at schools, and it'll say vote to volunteer, another place where learning leaders will be making a difference and being visible. So before I close and say how wonderful you are once again, I just want to tell you a funny story about your next speaker. And I know that your wonderful Dana Tyler will talk about him and read his resume, but let me tell you something else about Dennis Walcott. We're twins. We were born on the same day, the same year, the same second. And you can tell he looks a lot younger than I do when he comes up here. But when I had my inauguration for city council, he came. My parents were in the audience, and he explained that there was a mistake in the hospital and we were actually born together. It was hysterical. So I want to leave you to say that you bring together the best of all of us. Thank you, learning leaders. Thank you for all that you do on behalf of all of us.